Paths to Contemplation by Yves Raguin, Jesuit. Part 1. Paths. Chapter 7. The Mysteries in the Bible. In Christian prayer, there is no effort on man's part that is not at the same time an acceptance of God's action. And this comes from the very nature of religious cognition. For the final goal of the contemplative search is not a situation or a state, but a union. Now this union is a combined operation on the part of God and of man. That which will be a definitive union at the end of the Christian's journey is from the very beginning a joint effort of God and man. In every Christian search for God, activity is at the same time non-activity. Effort is at the same time the suspension of effort in waiting upon divine action. This simply means that there is a time for action and a time for non-action. Action on man's part that is best expressed in non-action before God. Non-action before God that is, in the end, the highest point of human activity. When a person finds himself face to face with a mystery, such as that of the Trinity, these stages of progress appear very clearly. He believes that God is one and triune because of his faith in all that has been revealed about the Trinity. But when he tries to understand the mystery, he cannot really resolve the apparent contradiction of the term. We must be under no illusion here. The distinction between the one divine nature and the three persons allows us to satisfy our minds, but this is not yet a real understanding of the mystery, a penetrating insight into the life of the Trinity. The apparent contradictions at the level of our understanding can be resolved only in the divine light. That is why anyone who meditates on the mystery of the Trinity advances as far as he can with the aid of his native intelligence, but he goes forward with his eyes fixed on the very obscurity of the mystery, toward the place where God lives, as he waits for an interior light that will come to brighten the darkness that shrouds his mind. In the end, that light comes from God himself. When Our Lady was visited by the angel of the Annunciation, she was taken aback by his greeting, and particularly by what he had announced to her. She could see no solution to the problem because she knew not man. She reflected on the question and then turned toward God to obtain light, which was immediately given to her. The answer was very simple. God raised her to another plane, and the infant that was to be born of her would be conceived by the very power of God. Thus, Mary was enabled to go beyond the surface appearance of the human situation and reach an understanding of the mystery of God's action. And it was God himself who answered her humble inquiry. That is what happens in every effort at contemplation in the face of the mysteries we find in Holy Scripture. God has spoken in ineffable words, and trying to understand these words at the level of expression is an exercise at which we can lose a lot of time. We must understand these words not at the level of our psychology, but at the level upon which the realities which these words express are being and life, that is, in God. It is not a question of giving the words of the Bible an allegorical sense, for thus you can delude yourself that you have understood something of the mysteries in Scripture. The most powerful words in Scripture are those which reveal God Himself, a God who is not an image of man. That is why the real meaning of Scripture is God Himself. It is good to try to nourish yourselves on the words of Scripture. If you are looking there for nourishment that will satisfy you right away, you will perhaps find that there is nothing but a way to deceive yourself and to look for consolation, whereas God alone should be the object of your search. The great danger is meditating on the text of Scripture, mulling over them, without paying much attention to the divine reality. And what is the result of these efforts? Nothing but words and feelings. You can, of course, derive some benefit from all this. But while you are getting this help, you must not lose sight of the final knowledge, the knowledge that God alone can give, and that is granted only to those who cease their thoughts and activity in order to give their whole attention to God Himself. Thus, your mind ceases its efforts, and that is the best effort it could make, provided you have that great respect for God, who is life and light in your soul as He is elsewhere. The silence of your soul is a prayer, an awaiting, a desire for God, and already a possession by Him. If God showed Himself in a light or in words, people would pay attention to Him, but He ordinarily shows Himself only in an illumination of the power of faith. That is why so few have the courage to set out on this path. Nevertheless, it is the way of light, and everything we find in the Bible is an invitation to the act of faith. The contemplative who thus engages in the search for the divine mystery is not advancing towards a problematic, far-off light, which he will reach only after years of effort, if at all. No, the illumination starts from the moment he takes up the Bible and turns the pages with the reverential attention of a child who, with wide-eyed excitement, half expects the heroes to rise from the printed words of the book being read to him. Christ does rise from the pages of the Bible, and the soul sees him as the hunter glimpses the hind upon the hills, sees him emerge from the mist of human knowledge into clear day.